Hey everyone, and welcome to 1.21 Gigawatts. I am Peter, and I'm joined by Matt to talk about Spider-Man Far From Home. This is our show where we talk about new movies that came out and discuss them and some such. I don't know, Matt, save me. The intro's completely good down a rabbit hole here.
Yeah, no, I just at this point we just mainly talk about the big blockbusters that are coming out. You know, time a superhero movie comes out, a Godzilla, you know, that type
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah. So Spider-Man came out, and it was, do you know what's weird? Because it was so soon after Endgame, I always knew it was soon after, but
hmm
I wasn't thinking about it, so it kind of snuck up on me a little
Oh,
bit.
it snuck up on me. I didn't realize it was dropping on a Tuesday.
Yeah, that
So
was weird.
yeah, so I was like, oh, people are seeing Spider-Man. Well, it's early, and I was like, oh well, I wasn't planning to go until Wednesday.
Yeah, because
That's a normal day to see movies.
I remembered it was coming this week, and then people were like giving their impressions on Tuesday, and I was like, wait, what? Why are people talking about it?
Yeah.
Because I'm used to going on a Thursday or a Friday. That's typically
hmm
when I'll go see a new movie, and sure enough, it was out on Tuesday. But hey, so yeah, we're going to Spider-Man Far From Home. We'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning in the middle before we go into spoilers. So yeah, obviously, I think we do have to give a kind of a spoiler warning for the MCU so far, though, before we talk about this, because so much of this movie
hmm
is built upon how Endgame shook things up. So,
Yeah, there's the
spoilers,
entire opening sequence
yes.
is catching you up.
Yeah, spoilers, yeah, it's almost a previously on the Marvel Cinematic
Uh-huh.
Universe. But yeah, so spoilers for Endgame and everything that came before, because we can't really avoid that at this point. I think that's something we just have to accept that with these MCU movies. Every time a new movie
Here,
comes out, the old movies have to
here's my
be.
thing. If you're picking and choosing at this point, I have to ask you why. Because these are part of a bigger tapestry. Like you can do what Connor does and just not see any now, But like, if you didn't see Endgame and you're coming just to see Spider-Man, I'm curious.
Well, that would be weird, but like you say, why wouldn't you pick it? Why wouldn't you see
hmm
everything because it's part of a larger
hmm
tapestry? My answer to that would be Doctor Strange sucks, and that's why I won't see one of them.
Yeah, but I mean, Doctor Strange, not Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Like, there's a.
There's a
They're
B
not all
tier, is what
equal.
you're saying. There's the
Yeah,
important
they're not
tier.
all equal. And I know people could throw, Ant-Man and Wasp at me, but because I really like that movie. But at the same time, I'm like, this is the one right after Endgame. Like, if you didn't see Endgame and you're jumping to Spider-Man, not that I'm being accusatory or judgmental, I'm curious to your thought patterns there.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I could see someone seeing Endgame and maybe not seeing Spider-Man because for them that was
Yeah,
the ending of the story. But seeing
yeah,
Spider-Man without seeing Endgame is very weird.
yeah. Especially that, Spider-Man's an Avenger now. Like since Civil War, he pops up in those big movies. So,
Yeah.
you
So
know.
yeah, so Far From Home, Peter and his class go on a field trip to Europe. They're going around various
Mhm.
cities in Europe, and of course these elemental beings show up, and of course Mysterio shows up to help fight them, and he claims he's from a different Earth, and he's here to save this planet, so it doesn't end up like his Earth.
Yep.
And so I'll say this: we won't talk about anything that happens with Mysterio until spoilers,
Mhm.
but I will say that you know I think most people who are familiar with comic books or even just can read a trailer
Yep.
basically said get into this. I bet he's going to be a villain by the end of this movie.
Yep. Yeah. And with degrees of, I was shocked with how close, you were able to piece together if you know comics
Yeah.
from just the trailer. And not that I was disappointed by it. Um
Joe,
like
there's a couple of things that people were guessing from the trailer which were technically right, but not for the reasons anyone thought they were right.
yeah.
So again, we'll get to that in spoilers. But so yeah, so Peter wants to be away from his duties. He doesn't want to take his suit, although Aunt May packs it in anyway. He just he's got a plan. He's going to talk to MJ. He's going to give her a gift, and they're going to kiss. And he's prepping this all out. He's got it all planned.
Yeah. Here's what I love about these two Spider-Man movies is they ride the line of teen movie and superhero movie perfectly. Because as great as all the action, the Spider-Man, save people, take out the bad guy is, I'm equally as invested in Peter Parker and his relationships with Ned and MJ and the teachers, which is Spider-Man in a nutshell, right? Like
Yeah, to
it's
a point.
that balance.
I think for because Homecoming was a big surprise for me because I wasn't sure how to feel about getting into Homecoming, and it kind of impressed me because it had such a good core arc for Peter, but it was also all the teen stuff was arguably better than the actual superhero stuff.
Mhm.
And I came out of that feeling really good because it felt like it really focused on just giving him a solid character.
Mhm.
This movie kind of continues that trend. I'll compare them more later when we can talk about the full
Mhm.
thing, but um, no, I was liking the relationships and was probably more invested in him, trying to like ask out MJ than I was, whatever was going on with these big CGI
Yeah.
elementals, throughout the movie. Not that that stuff wasn't fun, not that there wasn't good stuff there,
No.
but it was definitely
Yeah.
the less compelling part for
I
me.
for the first time in a while, I was like, all right, let's beat up these elementals so we can get back to MJ and Ned, like, because that little stuff in there was really entertaining.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
the 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 character development for MJ on this one, I thought they're cribbing a little bit from April Ludgate from Parks and Rec, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Um, and then Ned and him being in on Peter's secret and trying to balance that while all this craziness is going on. And that he's a real fun, almost like the Greek chorus in an old Greek play, where he gets to comment on basically what the audience is experiencing. I thought that was pretty fun.
do you know what I like about this? Or, or one of the things I liked about it is that Spider-Man: Homecoming, and this is not a fault of the movie itself.
Mhm.
The trailers, I felt they put out so many trailers that I felt like I'd seen the whole movie by the time it came
Yeah,
out, and there was one or two surprises. Don't get me wrong, but this movie, by the time I got up to like, Act Two, I felt like I'd seen 90% of what was in the trailers, and I was like, oh, actually, because in Homecoming it
Mhm.
was like how many like moments from the boat, for example, in Homecoming were in the trailers,
right,
and that was like end of Act Two, like area of the movie.
right.
Whereas this, like, once it got out of like Venice and we'd
Hmm.
seen like most of the first Mysterio fights and stuff with the Elementals, I'm like, I actually haven't seen anything from the third act outside of maybe one or two small moments that could be anywhere.
Hmm.
Um, like because all the fighting with the Elementals, I feel like in the trailer was all in Venice. There wasn't anything
Yeah,
from the Czech Republic or London or
right.
any of the other
It
places they go
was
to.
it was very much we saw like there's four elementals in the movie. We saw two of them really in the trailers, and we kind of got a sense of the other ones. So, but I'm glad that they held on to some of these, because kind of at the end of the day they're kind of big generic monsters, but it's how Peter, like the one in Czech Republic was the fire one, right?
Yeah,
And how he deals with how does webbing interact with molten lava?
not well.
Like no, and so I like that, and it wasn't just a replay of the water one
I
from
mean, to be fair,
Venice.
the webbing didn't do much against the water one either. It just kind of went
No, but
through it.
it's a completely different thing. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, but no, I did like a lot of that, and I like that the structure was very much A to B to C. Like, oh, now we're in Prague, and now we're in. It felt like we were on this trip with the students, so it was nice.
Yeah. Also, obviously, Nick Fury, Maria Hill are in there in kind of fairly major
Hmm.
supporting roles.
Yep.
Mullen, I might have expected actually. If you just told me, oh, they're going to be an experiment, I was like, oh yeah, they'll have a scene or two, whatever. But there's actually a decent amount of them. And there's definitely stuff in here that kind of deals with Tony's death, and that's like a big running theme in the movie is the aftermath of Endgame and Iron Man dying. And I think one thing I will say after watching this, and I think this movie works very well, and I think it worked in the last movie. I will say that I think movie number three, it needs to have a villain that doesn't in some way be inspired or use the technology or come from Tony Stark's past. It has to be something that's more personal to Peter, I
That's
think.
yeah, that's my main problem with this one is that they're turning Spider-Man into Iron Man Jr.
Hmm.
and as nice as that is with how the MCU plays out and how much of an impact Stark had on Peter and him being Spider-Man, I do, you know, I don't want to give anything away before spoilers, but yeah, let's just say that the villain does have to do with Stark in some way, and even more so than Vulture did. Because when you look at Vulture, you kind of understand his blue collarness with
Hmm.
Stark in here. This is a little bit more in depth, and we get to see some moments from uh, Iron Man movies past pop up here, which I thought was a little bit too. I don't say too far, but it was a little bit too much. I was like, well, this is just an Iron Man villain now that Spider Man's fighting. You know?
I mean, I think it actually works quite well in this movie, but I do think that going forward, because I like the feeling that he's Iron Man Junior, I think is something that we can actually make a point of overcoming in the third movie. Like the idea that it's not just that we need a big hero to replace the void that Iron Man,
Right.
left. It's that no, he still has to be his own. He still has to be Spider Man instead. Because one of the things that I said after seeing this is that I kind of felt like this movie and the last movie operate as a 2 movie prologue to what I would consider the main Spider-Man
Yeah.
part of the story, if that makes sense. And
Yeah,
what
because each movie we get, he's a little bit closer to the Spider-Man that we're well aware of from the comics.
I don't want to. I'll say what they are in spoilers, but there's a few
Yeah.
things towards the end of the movie where it's like, oh, he's finally doing this. Oh, and this element's been introduced, and to the point where I'm like, oh, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with 5 of these movies, and that these 2 were a prologue, and then there's like a trilogy of like, no, now
Yeah.
he's like full on Spider-Man. Doing what we think of as Spider-Man doing. Because one of the big things, of course, that I said in Homecoming, which I thought was really smart, is that he wasn't swinging through Manhattan from skyscrapers. He wasn't swinging that high. He was doing little buildings. He was in Queens. It was all very low-key. When he went up to the top of the Washington Monument, he was like scared and went, I've never been up this high before. This is terrifying.
He was a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah. I like
in that one.
the natural evolution that we've been kind of going through with like how big his stuff is, and that's why that line that's in the trailer where he's like, I'm just a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and Nick Fury's like, bitch, please, you've been to space.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, because the arc of this movie for Peter is very much, no, you're on a bigger stage now, and you think you're not ready and you're doubting yourself, but you actually like it's time to step up.
Yeah, he's ready for the show. Like in baseball, you go through this system, right, where you get drafted, you play, and the better you are, the faster you get to the big leagues, and that's where Spider-Man's now in AAA, and Fury's giving him the call. It's like, no, you're coming up, and Pete's kind of like, well, no, I like being in AAA, like, just leave me here, and I like that dynamic here.
Yeah, so about being scared of his own potential, and of course he does mess up, and of course he'll try to fix those mess ups in Black because it's Spider-Man. Spider-Man messes up. That's part of the character. We have to just go with that. There it is.
It is.
It was coming, all right. I knew it was coming.
Are we going to talk about what they named the snap, the new name of it, or is that a spoiler?
I don't think it's a spoiler to say they call it the blip.
Yeah. Because they didn't know Thanos snapped, right? That's like Avengers stuff. Avengers know he snapped.
Yeah, the public don't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that the public has this name for it now, and that everybody blipped out and then come back 5 years later. And I like how they addressed that here because coming out of Endgame, I was like, wait, so what does this mean for the people that have returned? And they address it right at the front, which I thought was real fun.
They address it in multiple ways, which is really nice. They, they address, okay, the fact that this happened, and then they address the fact that, okay, all these people, specifically at this age, came back and they're like 16 again, because there was like a complaint at the start from them where they had to start the school year again, even though they'd already gotten to like midterms, and that didn't seem very fair. And they also address the fact that some people have siblings now that were younger that are now older and bigger. They address the fact that there's even a fun little joke at one point addressing the fact that all these kids have IDs now that technically say they're 21 or older when they're actually whatever age.
Still 16.
Yeah,
because 5 years.
So there's a lot of neat little ways that it kind of addresses that, or even there's another little simple moment with Aunt May where she talks about how she went back to her apartment and someone else was living there. And I'm like, yeah, like all these neat little things that just build a picture of what the world was like the days following coming back. Like everyone was back and it was like, how do we deal with this? What's going on?
And I was so relieved that May got blipped because I didn't think of her not knowing what happened to Peter.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that they both went out, I mean,
don't get me wrong, there is a cynical side here where you can joke that every major character in Spider-Man seemingly blipped so that they're all the same age. Weird. Yeah,
Yeah.
just so that they're all the same age still for the next movie. It's a little bit
Yeah.
of a cynical story,
Yeah.
easing thing, but
I'm curious to what his love interest is up to. What was her name in the first one?
Liz, I think.
Yeah, Liz. What if she got blipped or not, and what she's up
I
to?
don't think so. I think we're going to see her in the next movie, and she's like graduated college, and
Yeah. Also, if the prison, so is that like if you get blipped in your prison, say you're the Vulture,
oh yeah,
does that go towards your time?
I have to imagine they don't count it.
Yeah, right. So
if we're not counting it for the drinking age, I feel like we're not counting it for prisoners getting time off the sentence.
Yeah, so he's still in there regardless of the blip or not. But yeah, I thought it was real fun because it's done with this like school news announcement style, and it's so amateurish. I love it. Like,
well, I think at this point we'll give the spoiler warning. We can start working through the movie in a bit more detail. So, full spoilers for Spider-Man: Far From Home from this point on. So yeah, kicking off outside of the little prologue scene with Mysterio first showing up in whatever country. We have an in memoriam video for all the people who died in the Endgame with "I Will Always Love You" playing over it.
Yeah.
And it is the most cheesy, ridiculous thing ever. And it's because this was established in the first movie that the kids have like a school news thing that plays over the TVs in the halls. And it's Betty Brant and the other dude, and they're talking about the snap and the blip and what's happened.
And all the different things. And you can see the boom drop in a couple times, the bad edits and random, push-ins, and definitely feels like a high school class made it.
Yes. I love when they get to have fun with that stuff and intentionally do things bad. Like how do we make this look amateur? Oh, this is how we do it.
Well, and so when the in memoriam comes up, I was like, this looks like one of those really bad slide presentations from YouTube that pops up every once in a while.
It looks like a screensaver.
And then so once you get into it and you realize it's the school, it's like, oh, okay. But yeah, a lot of little fun. Like you can tell John Watts is having fun. With these movies.
And there's a lot of great gags set up, because Peter's got this plan to sit next to MJ in the plane, but the other guy who's clearly after MJ as well, and he tries to get someone to switch. The guy's like, Ned, can you switch seats? And then the teacher who was in the first movie, who still had the funniest line in the entire cinematic universe of this franchise, right? The funniest line is still from Homecoming. It's still, I'm glad a kid didn't die in that field trip again. Right? That pausing again is the funniest moment of this entire universe. I'm standing by it.
Yeah. He's pretty good in this one too, talking about his wife that left him during the blip.
No, pretended to blip, but actually just ran away with the pool boy.
Yeah. That's what oh man, that's like the story of the guy that, was cheating on his wife, and then 9/11 happened and he happened to work in one of the towers, and the wife calls and asks if he's okay. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm at work. Everything's going fine." Because he had no idea what had happened. Yeah, pretty bad.
Well, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you survived. I mean, you could have been dead.
Right? But he was up in Connecticut with his mistress. So, yeah, pretty bad. But that's like her pretending to be blipped. But no, Martin Starr is pretty funny. I've enjoyed him in most things I've seen him in.
Yeah, he's pretty funny. But he overhears Ned talking about Peter having an allergy, and he's like, "Oh, that's very serious. Let's move everyone around." And Peter ends up sitting next to him, and it's a whole thing.
And then Ned ends up next to Betty.
Yes.
And MJ ends up next to what's his name?
The rival, the other Brad.
Yeah,
I think.
I'm gonna find his name.
Was it Brad? I feel like it was Brad.
Brad. Yep, it's Brad. So MJ ends up. So it's like the worst case scenario for Pete. And he has this whole plane ride to Paris or to Venice to deal with this.
Well, actually, a friend pointed out I didn't realize this, but a friend pointed out to me yesterday that Betty Brant is actually the kid from The Nice Guys, and I'm like,
I thought we went over this during Homecoming.
Well, we probably did, but that was 2 years ago. I don't remember.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, and she's really good. I want to see her in more things because she's super good in the nice guys.
Oh, she steals that movie. She's in that movie
Yeah.
with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling, and she steals that movie.
And she wasn't in Homecoming as much. Like she, very small role. Here she has a little bit more to do.
Yeah, well, because her and Ned are an item for most of the movie.
Oh, it's so funny. That whole teenage cycle of dating.
Yeah, because he gets on the plane. He's like, "Oh yeah, we're a couple now." He's like, "What happened to the Bachelors in Europe plan?" Well, that was the idea of a boy. Now I'm a man.
Well, the whole thing with Ned's telling Pete, it's like, just forget about MJ. We'll be bachelors in Europe, and it's gonna be a fun time. And then Pete wakes up from this plane ride, and that's all out the window.
Yeah.
Ned's a spoken for man now. And, so funny.
Oh dear. So, and the flashiest thing throughout the movie is basically, oh, I love Spider-Man. Oh, Peter, hey dickwad. Like that's basically his thing all movie. Until one hint at the end, he's got a troubling home life where his mum doesn't show up to pick him up.
Which that's always the story with those dudes. They're a little bit sympathetic.
I do wonder though if that's setting up stuff for him for the third movie. Like they're going to do a little more with him.
Yeah, I definitely think I like him. I'm hoping they don't do what they've done in the comics with Flash, where he becomes a soldier and all of that stuff. Because I like this jock version, that doesn't like Pete but likes Spidey, and having him have more to do with Spider-Man, I think would be fun.
Yeah. So they're in Venice, and again there's some more teen romance stuff, and awkwardly try to buy the right necklace and all that. Black Dahlia because of the serial killer.
Oh my god! Again, she's like April, and that sounds like a complaint, but it's not, because you can have a lot of fun with MJ.
Yeah.
With this.
Oh yeah, no, MJ's Zendaya is very good in these movies. I liked her a lot in the last one as well.
I've seen The Greatest Show, or The Greatest Showman, the Hugh Jackman, P.T. Barnum movie, and she's in it, and I forgot that was her. Like, she's so good. She melds into this part, and we get to see her, play up the awkwardness a little bit, be a little bit more vulnerable through parts of this.
Yeah. So Elementals show up though, and Mysterio shows up. Peter does help and try and fight in it, or maybe more specifically helping civilians, but he does this in his civvies. He's got his web shooters on him, but he's ultimately just jumping around, trying to hold towers up and things like that. As Mysterio's kind of showing off his skills, and it's like, okay, and we call him Mysterio because it's on the news.
That's
but it's
the name in Italian.
In Italian,
He's mysterious.
He's mysterious, so they call him Mysterio, and then it kind of sticks because basically Mysterio kind of likes that name, so he's like, call him Mysterio.
Yeah, he's got a flair for the dramatic, akin to Iron Man. He comes in at the right time. I was hoping they would explain the fishbowl. They kind of didn't, because that's the one thing I always look at Mysterio character design and go,
they don't. That's the thing, though. They don't have to explain it. It's explained
by
he's literally got a costume designer, so it's explained by this is just the design that this costume designer came up with.
I get that, but I'm talking to the grand scheme of, I like in these movies where they kind of give a little bit of, this is why it's this way, and
actually,
design.
They do kind of explain it. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Do they?
Well, yeah. Well, not by saying it, but. Later on, when he's not wearing the suit, but he's still controlling all the drones, he still has kind of that glass thing that's the shape of the fish helmet. So I assume that he's got that inside the actual fishbowl.
Okay, that makes sense then too. I forgot about that. It's been almost a week since I saw the movie. But no, just the design of the comics always has been weird to me. I want to know what's going on with Stan Lee and Ditko when they're like, we're gonna give this dude a fishbowl and give him special effects powers.
Hey, but by the time they got to create Mysterio, they probably created about 100 characters by that point. They were running on fumes. So like, okay, what can we do now? Fishbowl. All right, go for it.
Why not?
Yeah. So
that said, they pull it off. Like he never looks goofy in that costume.
I mean, at this point in the movie, like he obviously he's pretending to be like this noble hero from this other Earth. Nick Fury comes and basically kidnaps Peter, gives him the Edith glasses, which we're going to talk about, of course, which is Tony Stark's left him these fancy Tony Stark sunglasses that control this defense system where he can launch surveillance or attack drones from space at any point as he sees fit.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Stark. You still got bad ideas even to death.
Yes.
Like
Which actually, I mean, Edith is what even dead.
even dead, I'm the hero.
I'm the hero. Yeah, that's the acronym. Yeah, Jesus.
Gone but not forgotten. Tony
Yeah.
Stark. Because we get a real funny sequence on a bus where a lot like what was his suit? Was it Betty? Not Betty. What was his suit in Homecoming?
No. Jennifer Connelly played Betty in the first Hulk movie. That's what you're thinking of.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
I think it was Karen. How would I say?
Whatever it was, he has this real fun, kill mode, lethal mode activated, and all this in Homecoming. Here it's a scene like that with Edith, where he wants something erased from Brad's phone because he got a picture.
Well, let's rewind. Don't just say that. Like, we have to talk about this photo.
Okay, go through it.
All right, so we have to go back. So Peter actually turns down because they say, "Hey, let's go. We're going to whatever country to fight this next elemental." And Peter's like, "No, I want to be on my trip. I'm not ready for this." And they kind of accept that. Oh, I mean, Nick Fury's not really accepted it because what he does is
you don't Ghost Fury.
I know
you don't do that.
You wake up the next day and the teacher's like, "Oh, it turns out we got a free trip to Prague." So we're getting this coach that's been paid for, and it's actually one of like Fury's henchmen that are like the driver holding the sign for the class. And Peter's like, "Oh, he's hijacked our trip." And when they get to this rest stop, this female agent grabs Peter into like a side room, this next to where all the bathrooms are and stuff, and says, "Hey, you said you couldn't be seen in your typical suit because people would put it together like you're Spider-Man, because between the trip to Washington Monument in the first movie and then this, they'd maybe put it together that Peter Parker's Spider-Man. So here's your noir, stealth suit." And she's like, "Right, see if it fits. Strip now." And she's like very adamant, and he's like, "No, I don't think I really. No, strip now." Right. So he starts taking down his pants, and it's when he's got them around his ankles that Brad, his rival for MJ, walks in, sees him with his pants at his ankles next to this attractive blonde woman, and snaps a photo. So this is the photo that he's trying to erase from Brad's phone with the tech.
And Edith ends up activating a drone that tries to blow up Brad on the bus. And Peter has to snap into action and distract everybody.
Peter, like an idiot, says, "Yes, he's a target." What do you think target means, Peter? Come on now. Come on now. Actually, can we pause right now? I have to go back to something, because we didn't even really talk about Aunt May stuff that much. She's kind of maybe dating Happy. They seem to be like smelling at each other. When Peter phones her, he's around at the shelter helping her, doing these things. But we have to talk about the fact that she throws a banana at him and it hits him in the face, which is really funny. It's basically if you could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball, right? And she says, "What, you can dodge a bullet but not a banana," which is a really funny line. And that's when she decides to coin, because we've not really called it Spider Sense in this movie yet, right? We've not called it Spider Sense in this universe. And he's like, because you've got that thing where you could like, sense things.
Your tingle.
Your Peter tingle, she calls it. And he's not very happy about this. I just want to thank the writers and Marisa Tomei for giving me something to call when I get horny. So from henceforth, I will refer to my horniness as a Peter tingle.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, well, I like that it plays with that of the tingle, because it's on and off at certain points, which I like that when we get into Mysterio, like in the comics, because of what he does, it messes with the spider sense. So here, this showing that it's a little bit off right now, because he's got other things on his mind.
I was kind of reading it in this movie where they're kind of playing with how the rules work in this universe compared to what versions we've seen before. It felt to me in this movie like he has to kind of trust it. Like, it doesn't just work automatically. He has to actually give himself over to it and like trust that it's working. And that's ultimately how he defeats Mysterio at the end, obviously, is he trusts his spider sense to discern what is real and what's not. And that's how he wins. So but no, so yeah, we have this fun sequence on the bus with the stopping the drone, and there's a really cool slow motion bit where he has to like jump out the sunroof and like to web the drone and then jump back in a split second whilst everyone's looking for goats. What was Tim on the bus? Is that what they thought this would work? It's like, goats over there. There's goats. high school class really interested in those goats.
Yeah. I mean, they're European goats. Like, but yeah.
Oh yeah, so different. So
um,
different.
but yeah, so we get all that. They end up in Prague. The Mysterio, and or Pete helps out Mysterio, and we get a little bit of Mysterio, like one-on-one time with him and Peter. And Gyllenhaal's killing it. I'm a little bit biased. I really like Gyllenhaal. He's up in my top like favorite actors. So I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna be awesome in this role. I still put him behind Michael Keaton. I think Keaton had a lot more fun. I think as Vulture, but here he really opens up to Peter, and you get the sense that Pete needs a mentor. He's raw still from Stark. We don't know really much with Uncle Ben, which I love the restraint there.
Yeah, he's looking for a mentor, and I think we'll get more Uncle Ben stuff as time goes on, as he has to
yeah,
deal with his past and whatnot. But
yeah,
he speaks to Mysterio first, and then the big fight happens. Of course, he has to ditch MJ at the opera,
yeah.
because
Which
because Nick Fury
they're
apparently
going,
set in tickets for the opera.
yeah. So they go to Prague, and the kids are all excited because there's like this night light festival
Yeah, the
that's
biggest
going
party in
on.
the
With this,
world. Yeah,
yeah, it's like Mardi Gras, and they're all excited to go. And Martin Starr comes in. He's like, "Hey, and I got us all tickets to the opera." And the kids are all bummed out, and they go there, and there's no one at the opera because they're all
yeah.
out at the night festival, and yeah, it's pretty good. And so yeah, so Pete's going, and we get a real fun sequence with the fire, um, the fire titan or whatever they're called, elementals. But don't isn't this where Ned and Betty sneak out too?
Yeah, they sneak out. MJ sneaks out after, try to like find out where Peter's went.
Yep.
They end up in the Ferris wheel,
Ferris wheel.
and Peter's kind of mad at him. And then Betty's like, "Is that Spider-Man?" And he's like, "No, that's Night Monkey. It's Night
The
Monkey."
night monkey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a running joke. And of course MJ like sees like a thing fall out of the fight, which comes
Yeah.
relevant in a minute. So the key things here, because the fight's fun enough, there's some good stuff happening.
Mhm.
But the key things are the scenes that take place after. There's two big scenes that take place after for me in Prague. One is, of course, the scene where they have the heart-to-heart in the bar, and Peter does the dumbest hero thing in the world. He hands over this weapon system to the bad guy. I mean, he doesn't know it's the bad guy yet, but I mean,
No.
even if you don't barely know this guy, don't give it to him.
Yeah.
Why do you think he's
Give
going
it
to be?
to Fury before you give it to
Yeah,
Beck. Like,
yeah.
come on, Pete, you dumb kid.
Yeah, this felt so silly. And he goes out, and then like some of the people in the bar disappear. It's all digital and like a creation.
Mhm.
And then Gyllenhaal starts laughing, and we find out that he actually helped design the augmented reality tech that Tony Stark had in Civil War, and all the tech that's being used. It's Tony Stark drones that are causing the damage and projecting the CG.
It's
And
all special effects.
I do love that he's got a team. I love that he has an entire production team that are putting this together, and the idea that he wants to put on an Avengers level event so that the world will love him because they'll see him as this hero.
Yep. And that because he felt that Stark was wasting the potential of this tech just by being Iron Man, that you can get so much, which is this weird hazy argument where you're like, man, you're a little bit nuts. And then you find out he's like, well, yeah, Stark didn't trust me, said I was unstable. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
This checks out.
Yeah, I'm getting the impression there, old Misty, that you're a bit unstable.
Yeah. And this is so there was so much stuff that I was hearing on the internet when this first trailer dropped. It was Mysterio, and the multiverse word got dropped in there, and like, or maybe he's a hero and they're going to do something different. I was like, no. Look, I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan, but I know my comic lore enough to know that in his first appearance, Mysterio masqueraded as a hero for a jewel heist.
Yeah.
In order to steal the jewels.
Which
and he was
just for reference, there's a neat little Easter egg where he refers to this universe as 616.
Yep.
So Marvel fans can have that moment.
Yeah, exactly. And and he's a stage magician. He's a special effects artist and stuntman in the comics. So I was like, all of those monsters. This was from the first trailer I got. I feel all those monsters are just his tech, and whatever his tech is, that's what's causing the problem. Pete's gonna figure this out, and now we have a villain. So I was not expecting him to be so intrinsically tied to Stark.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was a nice little curveball, I thought. Um, and his overall motivations and whatever. And we get to see some of the people on his team were also there for other moments in Iron Man lore.
Yeah, Joe is weird though. Is they did this thing where they showed Gyllenhaal like behind stage at the Civil War
Yeah,
thing where Tony Stark was speaking at, and then they did the thing with the one guy where he was with Stain in the first
yep,
movie, the first Iron Man, and I thought it was going to keep doing that, but then for the next like three
yeah,
people that he pointed out, it didn't do a little flashback,
yeah.
and I'm like, come on,
Mhm.
do it for them all. Like CG them into old movies.
Don't go, don't yeah, don't half-ass three things where you can full-ass one thing.
Yeah.
You know,
It was weird because
just
they
go
did it for
for it.
two in a row and then just had three without, and it felt a bit odd to
Yeah,
me. I thought they were going to be like, okay, this guy was in Iron Man 2 and this woman was in
yeah,
Iron Man 3 and this woman was in Avengers 2 or whatever, like,
yeah,
but no, I didn't do any of that. So and then the other big scene, of course, is that Peter comes to MJ and they agree to go out and they're all kind of excited about it. And they go outside and they're walking over the bridge because they're going to Paris anymore, so he can't ask her on
yeah.
the tower, so he wants to do it on the bridge, and I've got something to tell you, and she's like, you're Spider-Man, and he's like, what? No, I'm not
Wait,
what? I'm not
no,
Spider-Man, what are you talking about?
that's stupid. Yeah,
And she's figured it out, and I think this for this version of MJ, I think this way of her finding out is actually makes sense.
mhm.
Because we're definitely, I think the MCU in general has not really had a lot of secret identities. It's something that they kind of have
Yeah.
avoided for the most part. Spider-Man's kind of unique, and that he's the one character who kind of has that. I mean,
Yeah,
for now,
I mean, at the end of the very end of the very first of these movies, Iron Man, Tony just yells, "I'm Iron Man."
yeah.
You
So
know,
it's not been a thing in this universe, but I think given how arguably more grounded they want to treat the secret identity thing, it makes sense that some people around them just kind of figure it out. So,
yeah,
because May already knows, and she typically doesn't know until much later if she's ever going to find out. But they obviously she shows them the thing with the webbing on it, and it turns out to be one of the projectors from the drones. So they see like parts of the projection in the sky,
mhm,
and Peter all clicks together, and he's like, you know what, screw this. All right, MJ, you're right. I'm Spider-Man. We have to. This is serious.
yeah,
The villain's got this tech now. We have to go deal with this. And this leads, of course, to him, rushing off, and I do kind of like Ned being like, oh, you're in the secret too now. Okay, that's cool. I mean, I knew first and for longer, but I mean, it's not a competition or anything.
yeah. Well, I also like too that there's a dilemma that Pete feels like: was she watching? Was she taking interest in me because or because she thought I was Spider-Man?
Yeah.
And there's this thing that's hanging above them, you know. So I like that. Again, it's this teen stuff that goes in with the superheroes that balances it well.
Yeah, because from here, this is where the action in the movie starts really picking
Hmm.
up because he goes off to try to Germany. Spider-Man does away from the team. He gets an excuse made up. What he's staying with relatives in Prague or whatever.
Yep.
And he goes off, and we end up having this thing where it's not really Nick Fury, it's not really Maria Hill, it's all just an illusion from Mysterio. And he ends up probably the biggest Mysterio scene in the movie is where he really just kicks Spider-Man's ass with illusions because Spider-Man doesn't know
Yep.
where he is. He thinks he's falling through places, but he's actually just landed on the floor. He ends up getting hit by a train at the end, of course. And it pulls a couple of swerves where you think Fury's the one real element here, but then it turns out Fury's not real either. And all of it's just an illusion. And it's full on Mysterio. I think for Mysterio fans, this was the scene.
Mhm.
This was the scene that's like, okay, they're realizing what
Yeah.
Mysterio can be on screen.
Yeah. He's in our group. A friend of mine, Rob. He told me before that he saw this that he's a big Mysterio fan. And I was like, buddy, who's a big Mysterio fan? And again, I haven't read too many of the comics, but if there's scenes like this in the comics, I get it. Because this scene in particular made me see just how much of a threat Mysterio can be.
Yeah. So he ends up in a train. He ends up in. Oh, where does he end up?
He ends up in the Netherlands,
Netherlands. That
where
was
they're
it.
like, which shout out to Boy. If everyone's this nice, I need to go to the Netherlands
Yeah, that's the joke here. Is
because
that everyone's really
yeah,
nice. Even the drunk football hooligans that are in the jail cell with him, they're very nice to him and give him a shirt because he look cold.
right. He looks cold. He's in his tattered uniform. They're like, "Are you army or something?" Because he's in the stealth suit, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And so they give him a shirt. He breaks the lock out of the jail. It's basically a drunk tank. and they think, oh no, we can't leave, so they lock themselves back
Yeah,
in
there's a little
the cell.
touch. There's a little touch with one of the police officers is wearing his mask that they've obviously taken
Yeah,
off of him, which I thought was pretty funny.
that was
But I
funny.
love
Yeah.
when he goes up because he's out in like the market or whatever. And he goes up to this random guy and
Hmm.
says, "Hey, can I have your phone or can I use your phone?" And the guy just says,
Yeah.
"Yeah, sure," and hands it over to him without even asking him what he
Yeah.
needs it for. And he's like, "Man, everyone's so nice here." So he calls Happy, and Happy comes in a Stark jet to like pick him up,
Yeah.
and gives him a bit of a pep talk. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? Like, okay, you've messed this up, but we need to stop. He's going to London. He's going to try and do all this big stuff. He
Mhm.
thinks you're dead. What are we going to do? And he's like, well, I need a suit. So he's like, oh, go make a suit. So we have this moment where Happy kind of stares at him with a smile on his face because it looks like Tony, because he's like moving the holograms around as he's building his suit
Yep.
and the digital printer or whatever it is. And
Yep.
he's like, you know what? I'll handle the music, and he puts on AC/DC. And I guess a big laugh because Peter's like, oh, I love Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
But it's a neat little moment, which kind of hits home what they're going for in terms of like stepping up into like Tony's shoes and like being the big hero. And obviously the kids are all in London at this point, and that's where the big finale of the movie takes place. And Maria Hill and Nick Fury are there. And yeah, we have these big illusions taking place, but this time though, on this side of it, we get Mysterio just directing. For no one sees him. The Mysterio flying around the sky, blasting at the things is just a bit of CG. That's all it is.
Yep. It's CG. He's on this bridge. He's surrounded by like a regiment of drones, to protect him. And at this point, Peter knows like what the MO is. So he's got to find where he's directing from. Basically, he's got to find the directing truck.
Yeah.
The satellite. And while all this damage is going on, because we saw that's what's causing all the damage is the drones just shooting up the place basically. So like the potential for collateral damage here has never been higher.
Yeah.
Because now he has an unlimited supply. Mysterio does.
Yeah, and Happy,
of these Stark drones.
The one moment from Act 3 that I remember in the trailer is Happy saying, I work with Spider-Man, then the plane blowing up. But, so he ends up teaming with the kids and they try to help. And obviously Ned and MJ
tower.
know know that he's Spider-Man, so they know what's going on. Everyone else is just freaking out. I love Happy trying to throw the shield from the coat arms. And be like, how does Cap do that, damn it? Because it just kind of like...
That's pretty good. Well, he's like, I got the spear to protect us. And Ned's like, actually, that's a halberd.
Yeah.
Like, I just love all of that. Well, just the Happy's out of his element, right? Like, yes, he's the head of security, but he's not used to being around all these kids.
And his password is password.
And yes, and his password's password.
He's the head of Stark security, but his password is password.
He goes, what? Yeah, because that whole who's on first between him and Pete. It's pretty great. And then we get some fun scenes with Hill and Fury because Mysterio's trying to take them out. Basically, anyone who can give up his secret. So he's going after Ned. He's going after MJ and Hill and Fury.
Yeah.
And it feels so throughout the movie. It feels like Fury's just like, yes, he's a super spy, but he doesn't have that mojo anymore. So you're like, wow, the snap really must have messed with him.
Yeah. Well, the one line of dialogue that sticks out once you get to the post-credit scene, you find out what's really going on, is when Spider-Man's listed, oh, where's Thor? Where's Hulk? Where's Captain Marvel? And when he says Captain Marvel, Fury goes, don't invoke her name, right?
Yeah.
And that actually makes way more sense when you find out who it really is at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole stuff with Fury and Hill makes a ton more sense once that post credit comes through. But we'll get there. Well, I just want to say,
do you know what's neat about it though? Just from a thematic standpoint, is that it plays into the theme of the movie, which is about illusions, and because it ties.
Exactly.
So even though it's a good illusion, because it's not anyone bad trying to get away with something, it's like
right.
it's neat.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to get to is. They seem to get their mojo back during this fight too, because they do this really cool bait and switch with Fury and Hill with the rocket launcher taking out, some of the drones and stuff, and you're like, oh, cool, this is back, and we get the ultimate moment where Pete has to trust his Peter Tingle, right?
Yeah, always trust the Peter Tingle. So never
right?
led me astray.
No, that's a T-shirt. So he, which is what you want to see with Spider-Man versus Mysterio, and they're up on the bridge, and and in typical Spider villain fashion, Mysterio's responsible for his own demise.
Yeah, but I do like that he actually tries to trick Peter one last time, because Peter
Yeah,
obviously runs down the bridge, dodging all the drones. I mean, I will say, if there's a complaint about the third act, I think the action is quite big and it does look quite good.
yeah,
I think the one complaint you could have is that there is maybe an element of just Peter fighting a lot of drones is maybe a little.
yeah.
It's not the same as fighting like a big villain. It's
No,
drones. He's fighting a lot of drones,
no.
and he's taking it. It almost feels like one of those side quests you would do in the video game where you have to take out drones
Yeah,
really quickly. So he's doing
those
that.
ones that I hated, where you have to chase the
Oh yeah,
Taskmaster
oh yeah.
drones. Oh, I hated all those. But yeah, that was another thing. Shout out to the game here with Aunt May running the shelter. I thought that was cool.
And even the mid credits scene kind of reminded me of the game a little bit as well.
A lot of it.
Yeah,
I leaned over to my wife and go, "I've done that."
yeah.
She goes, "Enough out of you." Um,
Oh, but yeah, because and there's some fun moments in here with like Ned saying, "Oh no, it's all an illusion. Nothing will actually hurt us." And then the bus like completely blows up once they leave the bus
yeah,
and things like that. But obviously Peter like saves the day. He gets to Mysterio, and Mysterio appears to die, but he's Mysterio, right? So like it could again be an illusion. He's playing it,
yep,
because one of the best theories I've seen online for the potential third movie is that we could actually get a Sinister Six, because if Mysterio's faked his death, right? We set up Scorpion
hmm
last movie. Teased him.
kinda, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was there.
Well, Matt Gargan was there, so
Yeah.
but yeah,
So
um,
we're teasing that.
Vulture,
Vulture. I don't know why he seemed like to turn over a new leaf at the end, but I mean maybe he could flip back.
yeah,
Maybe you bring in Doc Ock as the leader. He's the one new villain next movie, and have him lead the squad, and
well,
then
yeah.
throw in a Rhino or
Well, here
someone.
was another disappointment I had too was the lack of Oscorp I expected, and this might just be because of the game and how much Oscorp is a part of that. I just expected, there was that in the trailer, the Avengers Tower
Mm.
is getting rebuilt, and it looks like someone's moving in. And unless I missed it, I didn't see that scene in the movie.
No, I don't
Um,
see it. Um,
so, but I expected Oscorp to be on that building. You know
all
what I
right.
mean?
I
In the
never.
movie.
I was for whatever reason I was never expecting any Oscorp stuff, but I mean that's
See, I
fair.
just expected them to seed it a little bit through, but after Amazing Spider-Man and those, I kind of get trying to get away
Yeah.
from that.
And of course, after the fight, MJ actually runs away to go and see Spider-Man, to go to see Peter,
Mhm.
and they have the proper first kiss, where she just kisses him really quickly when he's like talking, and there's a sweet little scene. It does what it's supposed to do, and of course, everyone's saved and everyone goes home, and it's happily ever after. Not that we actually see that necessarily, but we cut back
No,
to.
yeah,
We cut back to them landing in the airport, and we see that Ned and Betty have split up.
yeah.
But I mean, we've obviously glossed over because we didn't really want to mention every single time they spoke to each other. But there's just a lot in this movie of Ned speaking to Peter and then quickly going, "Okay, I have to go, coming, babe," and things like
Yeah.
that, and just little moments sprinkled throughout just to give it
Yep.
that.
And then they
that
get
life.
back, and Pete's like, "Oh yeah, we can go on a double date," and he's like, "Oh no, we're not together anymore." She goes, we grew too far apart on the plane ride home, and it was just, we decided to do other things, and I thought that was hilarious.
No, it's good. So and we have a funny scene where he asks May and Happy if they're seeing each other, and they give
Yeah,
different answers, and then they're not really
yeah,
sure. She's like, "Oh, it's like a fling," but he's like, "Oh, is it still a fling?" And it's very unclear. I'm okay with them running with this joke next movie
Oh,
if
me
they
too.
if they want to keep going for it.
Yeah,
But the big thing at the end, though, the movie ends with Peter taking MJ for a swing. And notably here, though, I liked how it started on the bridge in front of Grand
mhm,
Central, because that's where the Avengers formed.
yep,
It was nice to sort of use that same location.
yep.
Especially since Spider-Man, more than any other hero, you think of him as New York's hero, right? Even though a lot of them are in New York.
Yeah, as he is Manhattan's hero.
Yeah.
Like he protects the Steel Canyons, and and all of this, and web slings through the city, and
So notably though, this is the first time I think in either of the movies we see him swinging in Manhattan from
yeah,
skyscrapers. It feels, and that's what I'm talking about, where it feels like he's become Spider-Man by the end of this movie, like the Spider-Man we think and know and love. And I love that MJ's not like amazed by the swing, and she's like, "No, this is terrifying. We're never doing that again. I'm going to throw up." Which
yeah, I mean, it reminded me of Superman, like him picking up Lois and
oh yeah,
and taking her through Metropolis and whatnot, and it was real nice. And yeah, they land in Times Square.
yeah. Although that's actually the mid-credits scene, because the movie
That's
it goes to credits with her just screaming mid-flight, and
That's
then
right.
they land in the mid-credits scene, and they're about to leave, and I've got duty, and blah blah blah, and then a news bulletin comes on, and it mentions some footage from Mysterio has reached the Daily Bugle, and I was like, oh, and at this point, before it cut to the video feed, I was like, oh, this is nice. They're using this to set up the Daily Bugle for the next movie, because they've not introduced that yet, and it's a big part of Spider-Man. That makes sense. And I want to say, I love that this mid-credit scene was not spoiled for me.
You and me both.
Because
Uh,
this came out of nowhere for me and shocked the shit out of me.
so my brother texted me. He saw this before me, which is super rare. And he goes, "Dude, the post credit." I go, "Don't say anything." He goes, like, just know, it's probably one of the best ones ever. So I'm going in like huge, like what MCU shifting thing is going to happen in this first mid credit, right? And to my brother's credit, I would have never have guessed this.
Yeah, neither would I. And I think so it's like, hey, so we're going to go to J. Jonah Jameson for this scoop, and it up pops on the screen J.K. freaking Simmons, and Joe, this is the first time to my knowledge in any of these movies where someone has came back to reprise a role from a previous version that's out of continuity now. And I don't think I should do a lot of this, but if there was one character out of any of these Marvel movies that you should have just brought the actor back from the previous versions, it's J.K. Simmons, because he was perfect. Like, I have a lot of problems with those Raimi Spider-Man movies. I think a lot of those characters are miscast. The one that I do not think that
He's
about
not one of them.
is J.K. Simmons. He is perfect in that role. And it reminds me of the video game, because it was like, he's in the city and it comes on like a news bulletin, because in the game you're hearing the podcast come on.
He's, from what I gather here, he has a streaming show where he's Alex Jones at Jace, right?
Yeah.
He gets on there, he whips people up into a frenzy, which I think in this day and age is perfect, because as we get more into technology, a newspaper publisher doesn't seem to have that much teeth, right, for stirring up the public. But a YouTube show guy for the dailybugle.net sure as hell does.
Yeah, I'm sure they still have a paper, but yeah, he's got this.
But that's what I mean. Like, this is where his outreach comes from. It's my cat trying to escape. But yeah, and just hearing that voice. I was a big proponent if they were going to go with classic, newspaper editor style Jonah Jameson. I kind of wanted Ice Cube, kind of as his role as the captain from 22 Jump Street, where he's just cranky and cantankerous and he yells at the new staff. That said, I'm never going to be mad at J.K. Simmons, because he is J. Jonah Jameson to me.
Nah, this was such a genuine surprise. It was a pleasant surprise. I did not see it coming. It was so good. And then the final post-credit scene at the end, we get the reveal that Nick. Oh.
Did you say what J. Jonah Jameson was
that's a good point.
about?
Yeah, I should probably mention that. I'll be honest, this is the weird thing. Even though it's a big deal, it's overshadowed by the fact that J.K. Simmons is there. And basically, the video from Mysterio reveals that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and they put his photo on the news.
And that he killed Mysterio.
And they say he killed Mysterio. So this is the big moment. So we end the movie with Spider-Man being outed. So that shakes things up. That shakes things up. And I never noticed it myself, but people did point out that there's like in the background, there's like a 1, 2, 3, like what's coming next kind of sign. That it's basically Phase 4's coming. Nice. Looking forward to it. But yeah, so that's a big deal. And then the final post-credit scene reveals that Nick Fury and Maria Hill were, in fact, because this is the thing, people from the trailers were speculating that it wasn't really Nick Fury and it was like Mysterio was up to something, or maybe Chameleon or someone. And it turns out they weren't really Nick Fury and Maria Hill, but it was the Skrulls from Captain Marvel, who are allies now. It's Ben Mendelsohn
Yep,
And
it's Talos.
he calls Nick Fury to be like, hey, so things, I've been doing a reasonable job, but I did kind of mess up, so things got a bit shady, but it's all sorted out now.
I gotta watch Captain Marvel again. I love Talos. This version of Talos, where he's like middle manager,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, it's fine. Those are a mess to clean up, but nothing that you normally couldn't handle.
Yeah.
Just his casualness.
And
I love Ben Mendelsohn.
it cuts to Nick Fury and he's on the phone and it looks like he's in like a beach. And I was like, is this Tahiti? They did like an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. tie in here. And he gets up and it's just a screen and he walks off. He's in space. They're on a giant space station working on something.
Yeah. He it looks like he has command of a scroll ship. And he's out there. My immediate thought was Kree Skrull War. Like, this is where we're going for Phase 4. That's the underlying.
Maybe. I mean, I know we're getting various space things in the next phase from what's been rumored. And also I wonder if this explains why so many of the other heroes are unavailable and off Earth. Is it because they're out there with Fury doing things? But
yeah, and the Captain Marvel line completely lands when you realize it's Talos and how much that she means to him, especially now because it's been 25 years they've been working together.
That's true. Yeah,
and I like that, and I just love the idea that the Skrulls aren't bad. Like, it's a very Star Trek thing to put out there, like all the race are one things, because the original Star Trek show had a limited budget, right? You couldn't get that into it. But the fact, not all Skrulls are bad and not all Kree are bad, and it gets into the smirky thing that I feel it's perfect for the Kree Skrull War now.
Yeah, I mean, that's something Star Trek did over time. By the time you get to Next Gen, you had good Klingons. By the time you had, so on and so forth. No, so I'll tell you what I like, though. I like that the mid-credit scenes especially, I like that makes it very... Because if you were worried that the Sony deal with Marvel was about to run out and they weren't going to have any Spider-Man anymore, I think the way they have this scene set up more stuff is a clear indication that they expect to have more Spider-Man. They expect to have more Spider-Man MCU movies. They expect to have Spider-Man in more Avengers or whatever movies. And that's comforting.
Box office it's at. It's right now, according to Wiki, is at 580 million.
Oh, it's doing fine. It's not. Yeah.
So Sony would be a feel foolish if they're like, no, it's mine now.
And that's after what, 5 days? 5 days of release?
Yeah.
So I feel like this might scrape past the billion. This might do sort of Captain Marvelish numbers, given the post-Endgame bump and given that they've kind of reconstructed the Spider-Man reputation, I guess we'll say, because obviously it was kind of hurt after Amazing Spider-Man 2. So Homecoming was almost dampened in a little way because the reputation was in the gutter a little bit. But hey.
Also, real quick, by the way, I looked up Mysterio, and you're like, oh, the Fishbowl, they've created hundreds of characters. His first appearance is in Amazing Spider-Man 13. So
fair point.
That was early.
Fair point.
That was early. Anyways.
I'm glad you mentioned that because the comments were going to give me hell over that. Like, it was issue 13. Oh.
I got you back there.
No, I mean, I think the movie's really solid. I think... it's hard to I think I probably like Homecoming just a little bit more, even though I like what it does with the relationships in this movie. And I think it's just because the core arc for Homecoming, where Peter finds his strength, I find just a little bit more emotional and compelling. Because that moment when Peter turns his back from the dance and goes to save the day, even though it's ruining his childhood kind of thing. That moment really hit for me. And then the moment where he has to pick up the building that's fell on top of him. Yeah, he's yelling for help. It gives me chills still. Yeah, thinking about it. It's a beautiful scene. If that one was about him finding his strength, I feel this one's very much rooted in identity, because of all of the the stuff with Mysterio and Fury and people finding out about Peter and all of this stuff. I definitely feel that's the underlying theme of this one. So, but no, I'm glad to have really good Spider-Man movies, and people can stop pretending that Spider-Man 2 is really good. So I didn't like that movie when I first saw it. I don't like it. It's weird. It's silly. It has good action scenes. It has J.K. Simmons. Yeah, I'll give it those. Yeah, I'll give it those things. Also, you're talking about the casting in those Raimi movies. They had the temerity to cast a blonde as a redhead, and then a redhead as a blonde later, with
MJ and Gwen Stacy. Like, come on.
Yeah,
Ugh.
I mean, Spider-Man's in a really good place right now between this and Homecoming and then Spider-Verse, which, arguably is better than both, MCU movies. Like,
Yeah.
Spider-Man's in a really good place, the best place it's been in a while. And then you add on the video game that came out last year. It's a good time to be a Spider-Man fan.
I'm reading a Spider-Man comic for the first time in forever with Friendly Neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
From our friend Tom Taylor. Or friend. He's not a friend. Our favorite, I should say.
I don't have the jingle set up on this version of the
No, it's fine. I'm
thingy,
just saying,
so I can't play it. But yeah, there's a jingle on other shows. I want you to know that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good for Spider-Man right now, and I mean, Spider-Verse turned me into a full-on Spider-Man fan. So this only keeps it going. As much as I loved Homecoming, it was Spider-Verse, and I've had to restrain myself from watching it on Netflix because once I open that bottle, it's going to be let's fall asleep watching Spider-Verse.
Yeah, it's good. It's good type. I think this movie again, it has an arc for Peter, which is really defined in the middle. It gives the supporting cast a lot of fun bits. The action is pretty enjoyable. The villain, I think, got a lot more interesting once we got to the. He is actually just directing a production to make it look like he's a hero. Once he got to that point, I actually really liked him as a villain. It did make the first half with him feel a little bit like, okay, we're going through the motions because I know you're going to eventually turn out to be evil.
Yeah.
So it did make that half of the movie just a little bit slower in terms of the main plot, although the teen stuff I still loved. So if we're rating the movie out of 10, Matt, what are you giving it?
I'm giving it an 8.5.
I'm also going to give it an 8.5, which is exactly what I gave Homecoming. I think I like Homecoming a smidge more because I think the core arc for Peter is a little bit better, but I think they're both really solid and there's not much in it. Because I don't think I went. I mean, maybe someone will go look at the old review and tell me I did give it a 9. I don't think I did. Maybe I did and I've forgotten. I'd probably give it an 8.5 now. But I'd still give this one an 8.5. So, there we go.
I wasn't putting my ratings down on the 2017 lists, so I can't tell you what I gave it, but it was probably high because I grade high.
You'd have to just go back and look at the review. I'm sure it's there. I'm sure you're on the video giving it. But that is a review of Spider-Man Far From Home. So hopefully you had some enjoyment there, and have some thoughts and feelings that you wish to share in the comments. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. If you want to support the show, you can do that a number of ways, like and subscribing, of course, but you can also rate the show on your podcast app, Apple Podcasts, or whatever you're using. You can support us financially by going to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses, extras, and all sorts of things, and voting rights, and so on. You can, of course, go and check out some merchandise over our Spreadshirt stores. There's links to both the US and the UK stores in the description, so go and have a look at all that and support us in any way you want. But all of it helps keep the shows happening, basically. So do all that. As for promoting other stuff we do, we have 2 other dedicated movie podcasts that are weekly that you can check out. There's a horror movie podcast called Screams After Midnight with myself and Tim, where we do some really big shenanigans and schlocky horror B movies and classics and all sorts of things. We'll have a review of Midsummer. That'll be the next episode going up in a couple of days' time. So check that out. We also have a sci-fi movie podcast with myself and Tara. Similar idea, but with sci-fi movies, some schlock, some great classics, and everything in between. So check that out too. That's called the Atomic Cinema Experiment, the ACE. I should say the name. The name's the important part, and I kind of didn't say it.
It's the real important part.
So that is the show. That is 1.21 gigawatts. That has been our Spider-Man Far From Home review. It's a while before the next comic book movie, but there'll probably be other stuff before then worth talking about, I think. So we'll see what comes out and when we're back to talk about a big release. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys. And remember, if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.